Jill, it's great to have you back on again. It's been I don't know, maybe a year or so since we actually connected, and then I had you on a podcast. So, for those people that are listening or watching, Jill was on my podcast. I think it was November of last year. I launched it. It was episode 59. So if you don't know Jill and her background and everything, you can go find out about her journey, episode 59. And today she's with us to share what has changed since then. So a lot can happen in a year.
Yeah.
And I know we had a brief conversation of a few things that has changed for you. So Jill, you were just mentioning how you and I first connected and you just released your book. And then after that, what started to shift? You started talking a little bit about meditating.
Yeah, well, I've always really been into manifesting and meditate. Well, I wasn't always into meditating. I'm really bad at it. But I tried for 15 minutes a day and I distinctly heard this title, apparently Shed the Shame, Manifest the Magic. And so I created a course around the title. So the first, there's like 20 modules in the first part, which is Shed the Shame. And then there's like 12 or 15 in the Manifest the Magic section of it. And it's really the different things that I've done in my life to be able to let go of my secret. Because even though, and for those of you who don't know me, my secret is next level. Like it's something that people are not talking about. It's something that's very taboo. And but everybody has a secret. So whether or not you share similar trauma that I have, it doesn't really matter. Everyone has that one thing that you have that's holding you back from being the magical person that you're meant to be. And so the course Shed the Shame, Manifest the Magic is really about looking at whatever that one thing is that only you and God know and letting it go, and the steps that I took to get past it and to step into, all my hopes and dreams that now I know I'm worthy of having, because I took the time to look at my shame and say, you don't own me anymore. And I did the work. And now on the other side, I have this blank canvas where I get to create this beautiful life with everything that's on my heart. I know I get to have. So that's kind of what's been going on over here in the last, 10 months.
That's cool. Yeah, we'll come back to a little bit more of that. But so shed the shame. So what would you tell somebody the definition of shame is when they read this? How am I supposed to go, I have some kind of shame I need to get rid of?
Yeah. Well, I wonder how people look at me these days, because I am able to talk about my trauma with very little emotion. Sometimes I'm laughing and smiling when I'm talking about it, but the only reason I'm able to do that is because I've talked about it so much that it has lost its power over me. So, I'm going to share right now what my trauma is, because I feel like what God's asking me to do now is to vulnerably share my next level trauma, to give people permission to let go of whatever that secret is. And so my trauma was that I was molested when I was a little girl. And I'm sure I mentioned this on our last podcast, but I'm so grateful for the Me Too movement, because I feel like it's way easier for people to have the conversation around being hurt when they were little, or even as adults. Like, people are dealing with sexual trauma on many different levels. But where my story goes into the taboo tender part is because of what somebody taught me to do. As a very little girl, I started acting out when I was around 7, in between the ages of 7 and 12. I was innocently and curiously experimenting with other kids because of what somebody taught me to do when I was a child myself, and I lived with this debilitating shame for 41 years, thinking that I was the only little girl who ever did anything like that. And unfortunately, it's way more common than people can even imagine. So if this is your secret, I want you to know you're not alone. The reason that I'm doing this is to let people know that we get to talk about this. We get to normalize it. We get to forgive ourselves. We get to love ourselves. I didn't love myself until I was 51 years old, because I was carrying this deep secret for so long. And, shame's that one thing that doesn't matter what level it's showing up in your life. It's holding you back from, your greatness. So that's kind of where I am right now, is just really staying in this space of talking about my shame so that other people can release theirs.
Right. So it's not just people that were molested that can use it. So yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I love the question. I don't know if you believe in God, or I'm talking to your audience, God, universe, source, or whatever. I call God, God. And I just forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I know. Sorry. So I love, in fact, I have in my Shed the Shame, Manifest the Magic, and I'm giving this away for free so your audience can access this. It's called Uncover Your Shame. And in the Uncover Your Shame, there's a series of questions that really help people figure out what it is they're ashamed of. And I love the one question, what is one thing that only you and God know? Because I feel like when that question gets posed, it really lands whatever it is you're ashamed of. So no, it doesn't have to be anything related to sexual trauma. It could be you cheated on a spouse. It could be you stole money from an employer. It could be you went into bankruptcy. It could be you stole a pair of sunglasses when you were 16. Like, it doesn't matter what that is, but everybody has one thing or more than one thing that they're holding on to, which is holding them back from living a beautiful life. Because when you live in shame, it's in front of you all the time. It's like this boulder that you're pushing up a hill. It's always in front of you. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. And you had me thinking, because first you started off with your story, and how somebody did something to you and you held that a secret. But now you just shared how a bankruptcy or stealing something personally, like I can go steal something, and that's the secret, right? So that is shame that I've created and just not sharing with the world. So you got two sides of this.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So have you had anybody that went through this and kind of shared with you like the life-changing moments that happened to them?
Well, because I so vulnerably share my story all the time, on podcasts or among different communities, I've had many people come up to me and say, God, thank you for sharing your story, because what I'm ashamed of is nothing compared to what you were ashamed of. And seeing that you were able to be brave and courageous and face it gives me hope that I can do the same thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. So 20 modules, you said, right?
Yeah. So module 2, I love this. And I wish I could remember who told me this, and I will figure it out one day, because when I do the Uncover Your Shame, there's 2 parts to module 2, which is, like I said, I'm giving it away for free. The first part is really going through a series of questions to figure out what it is that you're ashamed of. Because sometimes people forget, they block it. But shame can also, this person called it soul fragmentation. And I think it is so beautifully descriptive of what happens. So for me, when I was little, when I was 3 or 4 and I was molested, that was a very shameful moment for me, right? Then when I was 7 years old and I started acting out, I was ashamed. Then at 12 when I got caught. Then at 16 with my eating disorder. Then at 33 when I wasn't connecting with men. Then at 41 when I had imposter syndrome. Like, those were all the areas of my life where my soul fragmented from that one little instant when I was a little girl and somebody hurt me. So when I'm doing the Uncover Your Shame exercise, I'm taking you through those kinds of questions that help you figure out all the areas of your life that have fragmented because of that. But then I don't want to leave you there. I've created, do you know Ho'oponopono? Have you heard of the Ho'oponopono? Oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's a Hawaiian healing meditation. And my therapist did this with me last summer. There was one thing that I was still really holding on to with my soul fragmentation. And we did this beautiful meditation together. And I was finally able to let go of that last thing that I was really holding on to. So I have recreated, with permission, Ho'oponopono is not trademarked. I recreated the experience, the meditation. And I do the traditional meditation, but at the end, I have you bring up all those pieces of you where you're soul fragmented, all that, like Jill at 3, Jill at 7, Jill at 12, Jill at 16. You bring all those pieces of yourself to the meditation, and you have this beautiful healing experience. So that's what module 2 is really uncovering that and then starting the process of letting go of what it is that you've been holding on to for so long. And then I hope people find value in the rest of the course and they want to do it for themselves. And the course is an at home, at your own pace course, because I know for me, when I was so ashamed and I thought I was the only little girl who was ever doing this, the last thing that I wanted to do was get on a Zoom and be admitting what I was doing, especially at the very beginning of doing the work. So this course is really at home, at your own pace, so that you can really go through the steps and the healing that I went through. And I always, 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 sorry, somebody was calling me. I always, always, always recommend that getting a therapist involved is important. I never want people to do this on their own. And if anything that I'm saying today is triggering you, please know that there's lots of opportunities, lots of different places that you can get help out there. And my website is Jill E. Schultz. I think you can see my name on the screen. Can you see it? JillESchultz.com. There's a place there that says get help. One of the links says get help. And there's a lot of different resources there for people to go and share their story. Maybe it's the first time that they're saying it out loud, So I always encourage people to not just do this on their own, but find support around going through the healing process, because it's hard work. I'm not going to lie about it. It's a lot. It's hard AF, but you're worth doing the work to heal. You're worth getting on the other side of that, because, my book was titled Liberated, Releasing the Dark Cloud of Shame. And the reason that it had that title was because I literally had my shame cloud every day, every night following me around. It was this oppressive feeling of knowing that there was something out there that I needed to clean up. Like, have you ever been in a fight with somebody and you're like, I really need to clean this up, and you just don't want to, you don't want to face it, that was my shame cloud. I woke up, it was there. I went to sleep, it was there. And now I think it's gone. And I lived with that for 41 years. So, I want people to know you're worth doing the work to heal, to release that, because now every day I wake up and I know that I get to create this beautiful life because I no longer have that in front of me determining what I'm doing every single day, living by that ugliness and that oppressiveness.
What would you say allowed you yourself to release it? Like, find the courage to start working on it. Start on yourself.
Yeah. That question is so interesting, because shame is a weird thing, and people react differently to shame. And for me, it took 41 years of me doing therapy, me doing landmark education, me doing other transformational programs, me going to therapy again, me feeling like I was fixed, me going to therapy again. It was a very long process for me. And so part of the reason that I'm doing this is I want people to know that there are other ways that you can heal now. No longer do you have to sit on a therapist's couch for 41 years having the same conversation to get past it. There's lots of modalities out there that people can access, like tapping. Sorry, I can't think of them right now. I have them all listed in the program, but there's a lot of different ways that people can get deep into where that shame is living and release it. So I would say the first step is just what you said. You get to be brave. You get to be courageous. You get to look at it head on and say, you don't own me anymore. And you get to take the first step, and you get to find somebody that you can share it with for the very first time. And I promise you, I remember going into therapy when I was 33 years old, and I was terrified to say my shame out loud, because number one, I thought I was the only little girl who acted like that. And I thought, how can I say this out loud? This person's going to think I'm a monster. They're going to think I'm a pedophile, because as a 12-year-old little girl, that's what I thought of myself. Like, can you imagine at 12 years old thinking of yourself at that age, thinking that you're a monster and a pedophile? So I remember going to therapy the first time at 33 and walking in there and just being like, I don't even know how I'm going to say this. And every single time now that I share my secret, the level of compassion and understanding and kindness and love on the other side of that can still bring me to tears, because I was trapped for so long in thinking that I am a monster, So I want people to know that whatever your secret is, and I say this really glib now, I say it with a chuckle and a giggle, you're not special. I promise you, whatever shame you're living with, you think you're the only one who has it. You're not special. Other people have talked about it. Other people have shared it. And you can probably get on Facebook and Google whatever it is you're ashamed of. And there's probably many groups that you can, plug into.
Well, piggybacking off of what you just shared, that's why I have the podcast. That's why other people have podcasts or whatever else they're sharing, some kind of meetup groups or something like, right? So that you can learn and find out from others that you aren't alone. It's empowering and encouraging to have somebody like you come on and share what you've been through, and even better yet, with how you can help other people. And I don't want to lose track of what you said about this Hawaiian meditation. I do want to understand a little bit about that. If you don't, never had.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm gonna send you my module. Will you do it? If I send it to you, will you do module 2?
Sure. How long is module 2? Like how?
I say you need to set aside about an hour and a half.
Okay.
And I don't want you to do part of it and wait to do the other part, because I don't want to unlock things inside of you that you're releasing and then have you go on about your day and not get the, start the healing. So yeah, set aside an hour and a half, and I'm going to hold you to doing it. But so the Ho'oponopono, I'll just go briefly into it. So all of this you're creating you're just meditating. You have your eyes closed and you're being walked through the meditation. And what you're doing is you're bringing, you create a stage in your mind's eye. Okay. So say you're out in a field and you create this stage. For me, I'm at a big concert venue. I love concerts. So I've created a stage. And then what we do, we start calling people up who are in your life. Okay. So the first group of people that you call up is your parents. And lots of people have stuff with their parents, right? So the Ho'oponopono saying is, I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. So you're bringing different groups of people up on stage in different groups, and you're saying this to the group of people. And the gentleman who first did Ho'oponopono was doing this in a prison. And without people knowing that he was doing this meditation, like there was so much healing that happened. Like say, for example, you and I had an issue with each other. Say we got in a fight and we hadn't talked for a year or whatever it might be. And I decide to do the Ho'oponopono with you. When you get called up on stage, I do the practice with you. I say, I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Right? It can change the entire dynamic of our relationship without you even knowing that I have done this healing meditation. It can change the entire energy. And so you're calling up the different groups in your life and you're doing this. And then at the end, every person that you have come in contact with has a cord that's attached to, it's just a cord, and you coil the cords together, and you take a knife in your mind's eye and you cut the cord. So it's releasing all of the energy, it's releasing all of the bad juju or whatever you want to call it out. And that's when you can have this different clarity, this different energy with a person without them even knowing that you've done this Ho'oponopono meditation. And for me, my life that I was still really shameful of, and I was able to address that situation, and I was able to finally release that by doing this meditation. So, and I love how, because I take you deeper into the soul fragmentation part of it, that you get to do this experience with all the versions of you, all the little versions of you, whatever areas of your life where you're soul fragmented, you get to bring all of those people. Yeah. And so I think what makes this really special is because you get to bring all those versions of yourself up on stage, all those areas where your little self was fragmented, or as an adult where you were fragmented. And you get to also do the cut the cord ceremony with yourself. So just being able to release, and start the healing process of releasing that shame. I really, really love this module, and I've sent it out to quite a few people, and the feedback that I'm getting has been really, really beautiful. So I really want you to do it.
Well, I'll give it a shot. I'll set aside an hour and a half and I'll see what happens and I'll let you know. So I don't sit there and like, am I like closing my eyes for a little while and just say, hey, come up on stage and
I'll walk you through it.
yeah, okay.
I'll walk you through it. Yeah. We'll do the module 1 first. I'm sorry. We'll do the first part where we take you through the questions about what you're ashamed of. So, and then give yourself a space where you get to be vulnerable and raw with yourself, because if you're sugarcoating things, you're not going to get the results that you would get if you really, really sit and do this. And, you may have done a lot of work on yourself where you really don't have a lot that you're ashamed of, and that's great. You can still do the Ho'oponopono with people in your life and have a beautiful experience doing it. So, but if there are things that you've been hiding from, I would love for you to really give yourself the gift of, get in a quiet space where no one's bugging you and give yourself the time and space to do this. And I would love your feedback.
All right. Yeah. No, I appreciate the offer and I'll definitely give it a shot. So I mean, like, so you just shared like 1 and 2 of the modules. So, and you said this is something where somebody can work on it themselves at their own pace. But I mean, do they have the option to reach out to you for anything?
Yeah, they can send me an email at care@jillyschultz.com. Absolutely. So, well, questions, I'm happy to answer as many as I can. I'm not a therapist and I don't pretend to be a therapist. So if you have questions that go deeper into, what a therapist would advise you to do, those aren't questions for me,
Sure. And I'm sure you would know that barrier where you go, hey, you got to go reach out to somebody else. What's most important is that you can provide them the experience that you've experienced in the past, go everything you went through. And now you've had this course to help them with shame, right?
And everything is on jilleschultz.com. And right when you pull up jilleschultz.com, the freebie, there's a video right there. The freebie is right there front and center. So I would love anybody in your community to give themselves the gift to do this themselves as well.
Cool. Awesome. So I know that you were already on my podcast. And so I'm not even going to go back to the question that I normally ask everybody else. That's pretty much new. But I'm just curious. I'm just going to throw another random question out there. What would you say is your number one value?
My number one value. Ooh. Honesty with myself. Yeah, because when you're honest with yourself, that's when you're looking at those areas of my life that I really get to look at and I get to work on, and I don't get to be in victim around those things. I get to know that I get to own them and I get to heal from them. So it takes being honest with yourself first in order to look at that and move forward through that.
Interesting. Because I'm just thinking of how, with what you experienced, how you could say that you weren't honest with yourself, I guess, saying that it was.
Well, I hid from it for a long time. I hid from it for a long time. And then I started doing the work and then I thought I was healed and I'd stop and then something else would rear its head and I'd have to dig back into it. And honestly, what it all came down to in the end was self-love and self-worth, because those were the two things that I didn't have until when I turned 51 was the first time that I loved myself. And so even though I was going through the steps and being brave and courageous, because I was brave AF, you have to be when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. But it all came down to finally being able to forgive myself and finally being able to love myself. Because once you can do that, then you know what you're worthy of. Then now I know that I'm worthy of an incredible love relationship. Now I know that I'm worthy to grow a very successful business, because those were two things. There were 3 areas of my life that really affected me with my trauma. And one was my eating disorder. I was bulimic until I was 41 years old. The other one was I wasn't connecting with men. And I had friends of mine finally one day say, you're not you're not connecting with men. I would walk into a room and a man would look at me and I would immediately look down. And it took me several years to figure out why, but I didn't want a man to see me because I thought if a man knew what I had done, how could he love me? And now I'm like, how can he not love me? Like, I'm incredible. But it took a long time to be able to say that to myself and to love myself and feel worthy of that. And with my business, there were many times that I would go through imposter syndrome and think I'm not smart enough to do this. I'm not, I don't deserve to have a successful business. And now I know those things just aren't true. So yeah, the ultimate gift you can give yourself is that forgiveness and that self-love, because then that comes self-worth with that.
Yeah. Thank you for being honest. You're definitely sharing your value to yourself and to the rest of the people listening and watching this. Jill, I'll have everything in the show notes and all that stuff where people can connect with you, your course and everything like that. I appreciate you coming on and sharing what you just created to help others. I don't know what the next year is going to bring in. I'm sure there's already something brewing somewhere, that he might be taking off.
Either one of us know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, but no, again, I'm glad we were able to connect again and have you back on. Thanks.
I know you're one of my favorite people. I really enjoy our friendship and I enjoy that we get to support each other. And thank you for having me back on as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.